So yeah, I was gonna do this big ol' intro where I do like a skit, whatever. But I decided against it because I'd just be like awful, cringy, no one wants to see that. Because we all know the thing I'm best at is acting. Oh wait, I'm so stupid. The Wii U eShop. So yeah, if you haven't noticed, it's been a little bit since I uploaded. Yeah. I was actually supposed to review a cooking game in December, but the kitchen's being renovated right now, so that got pushed back. So I decided we're gonna review Ed, Edd and Eddy and the Mis-Edventures for GameCube. And just based off the cover alone, there's already problems. Like, why the Ed's clearly taller than the buildings in the background? Whatever. Anyway, this was the golden age of children's show 3D platformers, with games like SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom and Fairly Odd Parents Shadow Showdown coming out. So this game clearly has to be good, right? But this was also the same console that had Shrek Extra Lore Giants, so my expectations aren't going too high. This game was developed by Artificial Minder Movement, who later rebranded as Behavior Interactive in 2010, who were probably most known for games like Drake and Josh on GBA, My Sims Racing, and of course the gaming classic SpongeBob Hero Pants. So these were obviously the right developers to develop the 3D platforming iteration of Ed, Edd and Eddy. But that's enough irrelevant information to pad out the video. Let's put this puke-colored disc in my Wii and start the game. When we first started up the game, we agreed to go for a good sign of things to come, Comic Sans, or at least I know what font I'm writing the game notes in. Moving past that, we had the company logos displayed with 3D animations of the Eds, which is a nice touch. It adds a little personality to the game that they could have easily not done. Next we're brought to a menu. This is one of the laziest title screens I've ever seen. Everything from the silhouettes of the Eds running to generic background to the show's iconic theme song playing on a loop just shows how little they cared when making this. Like, why is the background just Eddy's bed while the Eds are running in the foreground in a way that would make it look like the cul-de-sac or something would be there? I even made a quick mock-up to show what I mean, like clearly it would have made more sense to do it this way. And oh god, the background music. The music loop isn't that long, so when it plays multiple times it gets extremely annoying. Not to mention that after the loop ends, it gives you a solid half a second of silence before the whistling starts again. This might not seem that bad, but trust me, if you ever have this title screen playing for more than 2 minutes, it gets aggravating. This title screen shows a trend that will continue throughout the entire game. Which, by the way, if they were going to have this theme loop, why not have an animated version of the intro to the show? That seems like a no-brainer, right? Well, as it turns out, according to the cutting room floor, in the PS2 version, there actually exists an animated version of the intro. It was just left out due to reasons I'll explain later. Because we've already spent way too long in this title screen, let's just start the game. This all opens with a cutscene that's supposed to resemble the cartoon. I say supposed to because wow, is that some poor animation quality. I can mind that they at least try to keep it true to show, and they could have just easily done it with some awful looking in-game cutscene. But it looks so cheap with the repeated frames of animation, it's hard to ignore the issues with it. But it does the job, I suppose. The cutscene shows us that the Eds are going to try to get ice to make some snow cones so they can sell it to the kids in the neighborhood. Maybe the reason it's a scam is because we have to steal the ice from the other kids in the cul-de-sac, as this window states the objective of the level is. This game's levels are each separated like different episodes of the TV show, which is shown by the loading screens having art that resembles the title card used on the actual show, which is a nice touch I can actually appreciate. And now that the actual level is started, let's see what the characters look like. I'm sorry, but wow, these character models are ugly. I understand that taking the animation style from the cartoon and converting it into a 3D character model is hard, but these just look gross. Out of the three, the one that looks the worst hands down is Eddy. He almost looks like an old man. It isn't just the models themselves look bad, and trust me, they clearly are, but it also doesn't help that they were given realistic looking textures, which just ends up making them look even more surreal than they already do. It would help a little bit if they went the Fairly Odd Pants route of cel shading to try to preserve the cartoony look a little bit, but they didn't, so they look horrible. This isn't just exclusive to the Eds, every character model just looks horrible, except for Wolf and the Kanker sisters. This is my theory as to why the 3D cutscene intro wasn't used in the actual game, since the character models just look so unappealing to look at. Or maybe they just didn't finish the intro in time, who knows. They also decided to add the moving outlines to the characters as a desperate attempt to try to make it look a little more like the actual show, but it only ends up looking bad because it's attached to such a bad model. Okay, let's just try to know how they look and play the game. As far as the game controls, you control the 3 Eds that the show is named after, which you can switch between Sonic Hero style, but rather than it being really snappy like that game, all the Eds have to be free in order to switch between them, which you often have to go out of your way to do. Otherwise you just give it dialogue along the lines of, I can't do that right now.
This is beyond my capabilities.
It is fairly bothersome, but isn't anything I'd call game breaking, just a mild annoyance. Back on topic, there's Eddy, the leader of the group you could say. His main special ability is that he can throw stink bombs that stun enemies for a short period of time. And aside from collecting one Jawbreaker, I'll mention those later, this power is relatively useless since most of the enemies you want to stun you can do so by simply attacking them. Next is Double D, whose special ability consists on him being able to interact with mechanical objects in the game, most of which being switches, and having a water balloon attack that can be used in first person, and also mainly used for switches. Finally, we have Ed, whose abilities consist on being able to dig in sandboxes, and he's able to pick up objects and throw them. Now that I've got that covered, let's go over the events of the level. After we walk forward, a cutscene of a distorted looking Jimmy plays where Otto gets scared by the Eds and runs away, allowing us to get a single piece of ice cubes in the cooler. I don't mean to be that guy, but I think you need a little more than 5 ice cubes to make enough snow cones for everybody. To advance to the next part of the level, we have to utilize Ed's special move, Batter Ed, which is utilized by pressing the R button. The Batter Ed is a running attack where Ed moves at a faster speed and a little tune plays in the background. You can ram into green highlighted walls and objects in order to destroy them so you can advance. After doing that, we walk into a room with a chicken in it. The game gives us a prompt that says we can catch the chicken by stunning and grabbing it with Ed. After doing as instructed, we receive an Easter egg. I'll explain this whole concept later. After that, we approach a dog at a doghouse next to another cooler. One domestic dispute later, we see a singing Jimmy with his dolls up on a clothesline for some reason. And since trying to politely help Jimmy leads to this,
I'll tell Mom!
the Eds decide to knock down the dolls from a distance using Double D's slingshot. After doing this, they decide to run away into a house and freeze for a second before the cutscene ends. I swear the developers didn't even try. So obviously the logical conclusion is to throw several squirrels into the house. Oh wait, isn't Ed Sarah's older brother? Would that mean he threw squirrels into his own home, or that Sarah went into some stranger's house? And why'd Sarah friend to tell her mom? Is there something deeper I should know about? Anyway, the squirrels end up trashing the place, so we end up breaking a door off a fridge to escape the house and get the last piece of ice. Next we show up to Wolf's farm, where the Eds find his meatball machine. This one reviewer actually said it was a radish machine because Wolf said something like, "Who vials Wolf's radish?"
So you end up on Rolf's farm where the Eds come across a machine that makes giant radishes. I got that info from Rolf, by the way, because artificial mind and movements graphics are so good that I seriously thought these were meatballs.
It was actually Wolf using an expression for getting riled up, not that it was a radish machine.
Hold! Who riles Rolf's radish?
To further emphasize my point, and yes, I am this petty, the instruction booklet actually refers to it as a meatball machine. So in response to being told not to use the machine, they decide to break a pig pen, allowing Wolf's pigs to escape and cause havoc. And Wolf responds by allowing them to use the machine so they can get the pigs back in their pen.
Boys, help Rolf put the sows back in their sty!
Sure thing, Rolf. We get to use the machine when we're done.
Wait, why is Wolf even allowing them to use the machine after they literally broke his property? Doesn't that just encourage them to do this with no problem? Anyway, after we throw the pigs in the pen, we walk to the shed and Double D activates the machine, ending the level. Wait, does that say 11% complete? Like the whole game? This is the end of the first level and you're telling me we're a whole 10% done with this game? How short is this game? 6 levels? Wow, not even Dixie Unite was that short of a game, and that was a portable version of a console game. Anyway, after that, we get a cutscene where the Eds use the machine to make snow cones, and Ed eats a feud and the cutscene ends. So am I supposed to assume that was a failed scam? Because it seems like they didn't have any issues. Because as you find out, most of these missions are supposed to end in failure, so I guess they did fail? Either way, it's unclear. Since this is an early 2000 platformer, after that we end up in the game's hub world, which is modeled after the cul-de-sac from the TV show. I do like that they modeled the whole thing, since this is the first and probably only time the cul-de-sac is able to be walked around in its entirety. It's even filled with filmware locales and characters from the TV show, like the construction site in the trailer park, even if these are just meant to represent certain levels in the game. Unfortunately for this hub world, there isn't that much to do in it. All you can really do without unlocking things is walk around and enter the next level, which is located conveniently right in front of us. After entering the level, the cutscene shows the Eds trying to get into Jimmy's party, but Wolf tells them that they aren't allowed, so Ed decides that the best solution is to go through the sewer, and Eddy agrees. And Double D disagrees, saying,
I don't know. It seems terribly risky and unsanitary, to say the least.
which doesn't make any sense, because wouldn't they just be spotted and kicked out again? And even then, this plan only works if Jimmy has a manhole in his backyard, which is definitely a stretch. Either way, this is definitely like an Ed and Eddy plot.
I don't know. It seems terribly risky and unsanitary, to say the least.
It's a bit late for that, isn't it? And that's so lazy just for doing the same dialogue that was said seconds ago. Anyway, unlike the level previous to this, the only main goal is to get to the other side of the sewer. Speaking of that, this level is really linear, like the second most linear stage in the game. The others are linear too, believe me. This one emphasizes it way more than those, by having the level literally be in sewer tunnels with 90-degree turns. And when it isn't that, it's just a gate or gap used so one of the Eds, mainly Double D, can use his abilities for a bit. Like how the last level introduced Ed's battered ability, this level mainly utilizes Double D's main ability. The special move is when two other Eds lift up Double D so he can get the higher places. This sounds like it would be a pretty simple ability to control, but somehow this game made it feel extremely clunky to use. The main two issues I have with it, besides the awful animation, is that one, you move painfully slow with this move. For some reason, even after you hit X to be bounced up higher, there seems to be an awful delay on when it actually registers, which feels wrong. The second main issue is how it just breaks up the pace of the game. This game loves to just randomly have a spot where this is required for no real reason except for force the player to use it more often. Which granted is a complete for the other Ed special abilities, but the other abilities aren't as much of a pace breaker as this one. This game also loves to combine this with Ed's Y move, which is activating switches, which is what the game mainly uses to justify going out of your way to get up to a higher ledge. This one might have the most pointless use of switches in the entire game. It's like rather than passing through a normal hallway, the game chooses to stop you to have to hit a switch. This won't be as much of an issue except for the enemies that this level introduces. The first enemy that isn't really the issue at all is the rat. It's an enemy that can be killed in one hit pretty easily and not that much of a problem at all. The real no-way thing about the rat is that the level has rats spawned throughout it in the form of these pipes that can be destroyed by hitting it once. The second enemy is this alligator or crocodile or whatever. This enemy takes the most amount of hits to defeat, but it will give you the most health back in return. The enemy is mildly annoying to deal with, but you can avoid most of them, so not that much of an issue except for one near the start of the stage. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about the health system. The health system in this game isn't that complex, so I won't go into that much detail. There's a blue bar in the corner that slowly depletes as you take damage, and you earn your health back by defeating enemies. When you run out of health or fall down a bottomless pit, some text appears on the screen, and you hear a voice that I assume is Kevin say,
Losers!
The final and worst enemy of this stage is the clam. I didn't mention it last all, but it is an enemy type that will cling on to you, and every few seconds your kid will get hit without taking any damage. The only way to get this enemy off is to jump repeatedly. The thing that makes this a big issue is when Double D is in the middle of activating a switch, you end up getting hit by the clam and you'll have to redo the switch again. I believe you can't even kill the clam, you have to stun it. And the clams are never roadblocking this level that really drags it down. So after exploring the level, we show up for a clam pit with Plank and Johnny, who says you can get a valve by draining the pit. So use Double D to make a path and turn the valves to slowly drain the water. Which, by the way, I actually have the game's softlock here while taking notes for this level, so that's great. So after you fully drain the water, rather than simply grabbing the valve, we're supposed to walk back up and grab Plank again and force Johnny to get the valve, even though Johnny was going to give you the valve anyway. I don't know. Shortly after using the valve, we escape the room and climb up a tower to get to Jimmy's backyard. The Eds notice that the party is as stranded as the game's frame rate, so they decide to break up the pinatas that are still left up. And wow, I wasn't even kidding about the frame rate here. After breaking up a couple pinatas, one of which containing several live cats, the cutscene starts where Jimmy gets upset about you breaking the pinatas, and the pinatas that the Eds break happen to have the Kanka sisters in it. Now a first-person rail shooting minigame using W slingshot, the only one in the game, starts. It's not that difficult, all you have to do is hit the objects on top of Marie when she walks below them. Do this a few times for 3 rounds in the fight and the level ends. The 2 other Kanka sisters will constantly appear and blow kisses at you which damage you. They also do it in the level itself, which foreshadows it, but there's 2 ways to write in the script. You can shoot the kiss to get rid of it, but it barely works for me when I try to do it. You can ignore it since dying in this minigame really doesn't punish you at all, since they don't lose any progress at all. The young cutscene shows the Kanka sisters running away from some bees when Eddie asks Jimmy whether or not there will be any cake left for him to eat. Jimmy simply responds by saying,
You can lick the icing from my candles.
Then it cuts to Egg with the candles in his mouth, and Double D is disappointed, and Eddie angrily knocks on the door as it fades to black. The third wall opens up with the Eds walking up to Wolf, who is holding a Jawbreaker. Then Wolf tells them about a deal on Jawbreakers in the candy store. Then Double D is informed that the candy store is closing soon, so they must hurry to make it to the candy store in time. This is actually very loosely based off an episode of the show. Like how the last 2 levels focused on the other 2 Ed's abilities, this level mainly focuses on Eddy's ability, the Tower Ed, which is Eddy and Double D sit on Ed's shoulders, allowing them to form a tower so they can cross skinny platforms to grab high up objects. This is shown off by requiring you to use the Tower Eddy formation in order to escape the backyard you stood in for no reason in order to continue the level. Remember how I said the last level wasn't the most linear in the game? Well, I believe this level to be, or at least feel like, the most linear. This level is designed by literally walking forward towards the candy store, while maybe diverging the path to get a secret or do a simple puzzle. After traveling across the entire level, we meet up with Kevin at the school. In a cutscene, Kevin tells us that if we can't knock over the trash cans he set up with a basketball, then we're losers. It makes as much sense to me as it does to you. After proving to Kevin that we are not lame, he moves out of the way and we enter a room where Johnny is walking around, but there are bees in the way of the entrance. For some reason this cutscene is just some random high-pitched voice instead of one of the Eds, so maybe they forgot to record the line and had to improvise or something.
Bees! What do we do?
So obviously the logical conclusion is to knock down some honey on Johnny so the bees can chase him. Afterwards, we see a cutscene where the Eds enter the candy store. Eddie immediately runs over and starts licking one of the Jawbreakers. Double D notices that the Jawbreaker he is licking is covered with foot powder, but it's already too late and Eddie has an allergic reaction and his face turns green. Can we just take a moment to discuss all the legal issues presented in this situation? Why is there a Jawbreaker covered in foot powder in a candy store? I mean, that is a pretty obvious health hazard, which is definitely proven by Eddie having a reaction to it. I know this is an Ed and Eddy game, so details like this don't really matter, but it's still an incredibly bizarre explanation for the other half of the level. Speaking of which, the other half as well is the Ed's trying to get home before anyone else sees Eddy's face. This is why the first half of the level is so linear, so by this point of the level it's easier to backtrack all the way to the start. There are actually two new sneaking mechanics introduced in this level. First one is using a box to sneak. The Eds will jump in a box and you can walk in the radius at other people and not get caught. Granted, you can't be in their line of view, so this really does not allow you to get close to them, but it's still used a few times in the level. Once as a bush, but it acts the same as a box. The second one showcases another use for a tower Ed. It's only used in this one spot in the whole game. You walk behind a pole and hold Y to go into a sneaking mode and avoid Johnny. It seems weird that they would program two whole abilities and literally never use them again outside this level. So after getting past both Naz and Johnny, the rest of the level is basic puzzles that are complicated as throw this object at this character. After you get rid of Jimmy who's painting, if you switch to Eddy you can press Y to vandalize the painting. This mechanic literally has less use than the sneaking one, and the game doesn't even tell you about it. You have to figure it out on your own or watch the demo on the title screen. This whole seems to have a theme of introducing a concept and immediately discarding it after the level is over. Nothing else of note happens in this level aside from the end when you have to walk behind a tractor to avoid getting spotted by Kevin. He seems to either completely know that you were there or going crazy based on him just yelling out, "Get away from me, dorks!" and running around in circles. Either way, after evading him, we end the level and the cutscene depicts Eddy getting home and he is thankful that he didn't get caught. Then suddenly the curtains open from the outside to reveal that the other cul-de-sac members with cameras all taking photos of Eddy. Then it fades to black. Level 4 opens up with the three Eds walking up to Wolf in his ranger uniform, and they start eyeing up his badge and they want to know how they can get one. Wolf says all they have to do is win the competition in order to get one, and Wolf says that Kevin wants it, which makes Eddy just want it even more. This level reveals that if Ed throws a barrel at a piece of wood with a red mark on it, it will fall and become a platform. That combined with Double D's slingshot takes up the majority of the beginning of the level. This level introduces the fat squirrel enemy, which stands still as it throws nuts at you. It's really easy to defeat and takes way too long to hit you, and is so inaccurate that it isn't really a threat. There's even one in a room that can't even hit you, it's just on a ledge. After some not-noteworthy platforming sections, we reach a point where a cutscene shows us Jimmy's head coming out of a hole, and all of a sudden we're playing whack-a-mole with Jimmy's head. It isn't a doll or a fake version of him, that's the real Jimmy. Either Jimmy is getting some good pay, or Wolf is way more evil than I thought. There is another puzzle in this level that involves you getting 4 different batteries and placing them in a machine. It has some annoying spots, but overall I thought it was interesting enough to mention. Besides that and some obvious examples of animal abuse, the only thing left really talking about is the race for Kevin at the end. You race him by running along a track with the batter Ed, and there's some fake platforms and holes you have to avoid. Otherwise you have to restart the race again. It is fairly simplistic, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fun with it. The demo video shows that there was supposed to be a pipe you can go through, but it was removed for some reason. Aside from one spot where the camera makes it hard to see a fake platform, I enjoyed this part of the level. After you win the race, the cutscene shows Kevin getting annoyed about losing and walks away. Then it cuts to the Eds celebrating their achievements. When they approach Wolf about getting a badge, Wolf realizes he only has one badge to give, so Eddy asks if he can get it, but Wolf compromises by ripping the badge into 3 pieces, and each Ed receives a piece. The Eds are obviously upset by this and it fades to black ending the level. Level 5 opens with Eddy wanting to scam Jimmy by hiding a stuffed rabbit Mr. Yum Yum in an old house. Then after Eddy does that, he wants immediate pay in order to return it. But Jimmy wants Eddy to return the ball before he gets paid. Then we are transferred to a CG cutscene where they're in the house. The Eds notice that Mr. Yum Yum isn't where they placed him, and when they try to leave the door, it is locked. Then the Kanker sisters show up and demand gifts for the doll. And they set Mr. Yum Yum to a saw so the Eds have limited time in order to receive the gifts. The location of the mansion is actually based on an episode of the show, although the plot was different. This level is divided into 3 parts, each one being a different route for the house in order to get different gifts. This level operates through a series of puzzles you need to complete in order to pass the level. Most of the puzzles aren't that much more complicated than using one of the Ed's abilities to activate some sort of switch, then you continue. The first gift is really easy to get, requiring you just to move a trophy, but they take progressively longer to get as the level continues. The odd thing about this level is the animation that plays when you give the Kanker sisters the gifts, which is bizarre by the way. But yeah, for some reason I guess they didn't have an idle animation for the Kanker, so they just ended up using this stun animation. The result just was bomb. After you give them the gift, the next part of the level opens and you go get the next gift. This level also introduces the spider and bat enemy, but considering I almost forgot to write in the script, I think that tells you how memorable it was. This level isn't that complex or anything, but I actually thought this level was moderately enjoyable. I like the mansion aesthetic this level has, and it staying faithful to the show does it favors. Even if the puzzles aren't really the greatest like the rest of the game, this level does hold my attention for me when I played it. The end cutscene depicts Eddy returning Mr. Yum Yum to Jimmy. After he returns the doll, it breaks in half in Jimmy's arms and he cries and runs away. Level 6 starts with Eddy looks under his bed for a briefcase of jawbreakers, but the jawbreakers are missing, but a piece of map falls out. So they assume they were stolen and they go searching for it. The old western music is a sign this level is going to be a journey, and a journey it is. This level is the longest level in the game. The first half is just looking for map pieces. Each map piece is divided into challenges that are fairly lengthy compared to the level before, and they feel more rewarding to complete. In fact, this level is probably my favorite, despite how long it is. That doesn't mean it's a masterpiece, but for this game it's pretty good, or at least shows some good use of what they could have done. Seeing Johnny 2x4 fly and have his dialogue cut off is legitimately funny.
Darn litter! I can see our house!
And this level did have an odd obsession with pink-eared flamingos. They once again use the different Ed's abilities, but I feel like this level understands how to use them to their fullest potential. Even that potential is really sketchy programming and it's frustrating, but that's normal for this game. Since this level is so large, the frame rate definitely takes a hit in some spots. Not to say it doesn't in every levels, but it's particularly bad in this level. The level is so large you can see the edge of the skybox, and it's a low quality texture goodness. Okay, for the rest of the review, I've been trying to not talk about the graphics, but I feel like this is a better time than any to go over it. I'm not just talking about the character models. These graphics look like they're from the early Dreamcast era. I understand trying to keep with the show's art style, which I think they did well for the most part, but that doesn't excuse how lazy they were with some of these old designs and models. But what is mostly unexcusable is the unbelievably low-res textures on display here. These are some of the worst looking textures I've ever seen. I could have sworn I was looking at an N-Gage game or something. It's extremely baffling how bad some of these can be. Maybe it's just because I'm on the GameCube version and I had to make disk space, but I feel like that could have been a better option of making it look this bad. Returning to the actual level, the dog enemy is back, and you can actually hurt it this time. Oh, so it wasn't okay to hurt the dog before, but now it's a girl it's okay? What? After collecting a few map pieces and solving a few basic puzzles, you find Jimmy who demands you to give him a jawbreaker. So Ed points out a spider rag that looks nothing like a jawbreaker, then you do a treacherous skinny platform walk back and forth, and it is hard due to mud and tire hitboxes being really large. Once you return the egg to Jimmy, it hatches in his arms, and during his trauma, you grab the map piece and continue. After that, there's a pit you can easily cross with double D, and you activate a switch and you continue the level. Unless the game freezes on a black screen like it happened to me when I was getting those for this video. After this, you go into an arena where Wolf has the last piece in the map, and you have to fight the greatest boss to ever exist in a video game, Victor. Well, technically you also fight him in level 4, but I wanted to have the drama for this level, so we're just going to pretend that it didn't happen. How will a boss of such caliber be defeated? After that, the map is finally created, which leads the Edds to a trailer nearby, and there is a cutscene where the Edds walk into a trailer and fall down a trapdoor. In this area, you have to do a series of short challenges within a very lax time limit. After that, you go into a room with the Kanka sisters standing on a platform with the jawbreakers dangling above them. You have to dodge their kisses and throw objects to destroy a radio, then batter at the 4 pillars. Now, did you know the game's instruction booklet actually gives you tips for each of the game's levels? And for this level, it says you have to stun red squirrels or Eddy's stink bomb and throw them at it. Instead, it's way easier to just throw barrels of flamingos at the pillars instead. After that, the tower collapses and the Edds celebrate their victory, then the game just kinda ends. Now this is where you think the review might end, but it actually doesn't. Do you remember when I mentioned Ed's digging ability? Well, in each level there's actually a sandbox hidden in the level, where if you dig into it as Ed, you find a piece of a costume. There are 2 costumes to find. Each costume unlocks a bonus level that can be accessed in the main menu. That means I get to talk about more levels. Great. In the first of the 2 bonus levels, you play as only Ed. It's a level inspired by the Godzilla movie, but it's likely it's supposed to be one of the comics that Ed reads in the show. It is based off the Edtropolis episode. The goal of the level is to destroy all the buildings in the area you are in, then a bridge will open allowing you to continue. The enemy at this level are tanks that you have to slam, then pick up, then throw. They can be pretty annoying to deal with in bunches, but you can completely ignore them if you need to and just continue smashing buildings. After doing that a couple times, you reach the boss of the level, which is the Kankerator. You have to avoid the shockwaves and throw chunky poofs at it in order to defeat it. After that, the level is over. The second level has a little more depth to it. The Edds are trapped on a different planet, and Ed ends up getting captured by the robots. And it's up to Double D and Eddy to save them. In this level, each of the Edds are wearing spacesuits, which makes each of their abilities more space-themed, like how Double D's ruler becomes a lightsaber, or how his slingshot becomes a laser blaster. Out of all the levels in this game, this one is easily the hardest. This level has enemy spawners everywhere. The robots either shoot lasers or they charge toward you, leading to a lot of damage being taken. Since most of this level involves a fair amount of switch pressing, you're going to have to defeat a lot of robots. And this level ends with a battle against a giant robot. This boss fight actually looks like it would be horrible to defeat, but thankfully it's really easy to just hide into a spot where it can't see you and then just shoot it until it dies. After that, it's revealed that the Edds were just playing in the junkyard the whole time. I really like the theming in this level, but the difficulty really keeps me from recommending it to anybody. Okay, now that I finally finished talking about all the levels, I'm going to go over all the main collectibles of this game. Yeah, because this is technically a platformer, so it has to contain some kind of collectibles. The first one's the Easter eggs. I've already explained how to get them earlier in this review, but what you get from them is already kind of pointless. The first 2 eggs give you either big or small heads, then the third one gives you access to the space outfits from the second bonus level, but you don't get any of the cool space abilities, so it ruins any reason you would actually want to use it. The final 3 eggs give you access to one of the 3 movie booths located in the cul-de-sac. The first one is some music video with Plank. It's honestly the best out of the 3 and actually worth watching. The second one just kind of lists you the voice actors, nothing really of note. The final egg is some kind of unused trailer for the game itself. It's not really that special, except you can see several changes between the final game, and there's even some placeholder models for stuff like the slingshot, but it's only really useful to find some of the Jawbreaker locations. Speaking of which, Jawbreakers are the main collectible of this game. It does make sense that the Edds will be collecting mainly Jawbreakers. Each level has 2 to 3 of them hidden in the level. None of them are really that hard to find as long as you explore the level a little bit. The ones that are annoying to get exist in the playground of the cul-de-sac. If you activate this gumball machine as double D, you spend coins which you find by breaking boxes of random objects in the level. Or if you've already collected a Jawbreaker, it will be replaced with a gold coin if you replay the level. After you buy a Jawbreaker, the one after it will cost double the one previous. By the end, you end up having to spend hundreds of coins just to buy all the Jawbreakers.
You know what that means? Grinding.
The only reason I can think as to why they did this is try to add some replay variety to this game, but all it feels like is the way to force me to replay level 6 a few times for coins. The reward you get for collecting them all, you get some cheats. You can stay hidden from enemies, run faster, and have an infinite health. As cool as getting cheats are, they don't give you any cheats that actually make the game fun to play. The only actually fun one to use is the speed one. I mean, it would really hurt them at a moon jump cheat, but I guess it would really only show how empty the world actually are.
So that's Ed and Eddy, the Mis-Edventures for the GameCube. Overall, a pretty okay concept with a really bad execution. They wanted to make every single level super linear, which ended up doing more harm than good. The game has really basic level structures that just don't change throughout the entire game, and it made getting through some of these levels a chore. This game was either the result of a lack of budget or a lack of passion, and honestly it was one of the most boring platformers I've ever played. And speaking of platformer, I can only think of one example when you actually have to jump over a gap to proceed in the level. So that's my review of Ed and Eddy Mis-Edventures for the GameCube. Honestly, I wouldn't really recommend the game unless you're a super hardcore fan of the show, you just really want it, because seriously, don't buy it, it's not worth it, don't do it. Like, I never want to play this game ever again. Like, seriously, don't. Like, no. So that's the end of my review. I'm going to walk off screen as it fades to black because I don't know how to end videos. Haha.